Hello and good afternoon, everyone. We are really glad to have you with us today. This session is actually hosted by the digital infrastructure community, and we are very glad to have here Dominic Schlepen and Sonny Andalis, who are going to present some of the story behind the digital infrastructure community itself, but also some experiences in the digital infrastructure project delivery themselves. So my name is Jakub Blachocki. I'm a director for Digital Advancement Academies, ASEAN, ANZ, and I'm helping the industry with a number of programs. This is one of them. So without further ado, I will actually pass the bucket to Dominic Schlepen, who is coordinating the community development as well. Right. So Dominic, the word to you. Yeah.
So I took over to coordinate this community. So the digital infrastructure community is not something that we think should be owned by any one person or myself. So we're looking for others to join, and we would like to form a core group and would like to form a larger community for all that are interested to join in. Now, why we came about this, what is it about? In essence, for most people probably know me, but I came to Singapore 3 years ago before worked in Hong Kong, and then came here working with Mott MacDonald for a while on infrastructure projects like Changi Airport and sort of BIM manager type roles. And then later joined Bentley and came across, was collaborating with other companies, contractors and so on. And I realized many BIM coordinators, engineers, project managers all had very similar questions when it came to digital infrastructure, i.e. before we were always talking about BIM for buildings, and now there's a move towards more infrastructure focused. Government is investing, so a lot of new projects with specifications that require something like BIM for infrastructure, but that's not the answer. So these are the sort of questions that a lot of people are coming across. And one of them is Sonny Andalis, who is here in the room with us from Jacobs, and I think he's put together a brilliant presentation what BIM for infrastructure means. So for the community, we would like you to connect to us, and if you're interested, form part of, tell us if you want to be part of the core group. Otherwise, I would start with one question.
Yeah.
That's to do with your experience from Sweden.
Yeah.
How they managed to get the BIM models to be what counts more than the drawings. So we trying this over here in the Philippines and other places. We trying an approach like that, and it seems difficult to get the buy-in from either government agencies or the client to have that approach. Can you say something about this? Why in Sweden that was possible or pushed in?
Yeah, we visited Traffic Market, which is equivalent to LPA in Singapore, and then what we learned from them is very, very simple. So they have actually modeled all the elements from preliminary and detailed design, very, very, how to say this, high level. Not really high level, but high in detail. The LOD is actually very high. The aim of which is that everything that needs to be constructed needs to be modeled. And if you have that level of detail, you can extract the quantities directly from the model. Because there's a big difference between unit cost and lump sum cost. Okay, so if you, for example, if you're modeling an MRT station and you actually modeled everything, you can actually extract the quantities directly from the model. But if you for example, put that as a lump sum item, then there's no need to model it, right? Because it's a lump sum item anyway, and the project is a design and build. So for that particular project, they actually modeled it with a very, very high level of detail. At the same time, they're actually do away with lump sum items. Yeah. So if you do away with that, yeah. So the consultants actually modeled everything that they intend to do. So the BOQ generated from the models makes sense.
And that high level of detail, was that in the station or that type of model?
Both in the tunnels and in the stations.
And in the tunnels as well. Because that is actually another question I came across a lot in Singapore and ASEAN region. How do we deal with the fact that we have typically like OBD or Revit models, and then we have the corridor modeling, which is mesh based. That's like coming out of Civil 3D or Open Roads, Open Rail.
Yeah.
And often when I was acting as BIM manager, people challenged me to say that, okay, we have the buildings in the BIM model, in the BIM geometry format with COBie, and that, make the tunnel, make the rail track the same. And sometimes you mentioned HSL from Singapore to Kuala Lumpur. Would you do that? And that for me was often a sort of hard point to convince people that.
Yeah, so the quick answer to that is there is a difference between a 3D model, which is a solid geometry, and you have a GIS, or basically a map that is basically a surface. So to combine them, that's possible, but you need to treat them separately. Meaning to say that, as mentioned, right, your how to say this, rail alignment can be in Open Rail, or in Open Roads, or it can be in Civil 3D, or it can even be in InfraWorks, right? But when you combine them, you treat them as one data set, and your 3D models as another data set. And the key message here is combining them together in a federated manner. They don't need to share one, they don't need to be on one single authoring software. You don't need to combine them in EcoSim or Revit. There are third-party applications like Navisworks or Navigator that can combine them. And then they will retain their intelligence, because you can have feature definitions in your GIS data, and you can have element attributes, right, in your 3D models. When you combine them unnecessarily on one single platform, that is lost. So when you combine them, and let's just say Navisworks or Navigator, then you can retain those information inside. So treating them separately is the key. I mean, that's my opinion.
Good. I think that's a good explanation. Did we see? Could we assess others?
So actually, in the meantime, thanks, Tony, for your sharing your experience. A couple of other questions that actually come to my mind in the meantime. One is about the collaboration and multi-stakeholder engagement. As you know, most of these projects, both Punggol district and other infrastructure, big Changi as well, those are huge infrastructure projects which has also a large number of contractors, main contractors, subcontractors. An example that recently we were engaged with was the TWRP project as well, where you have a number of contracts, subcontracts. So the supply chain is getting quite big on these projects, right? So how do you think at the moment these type of challenges should be addressed in terms of the collaboration, sharing? What is your experience basically in Singapore? Like, how do you see these collaboration challenges are being resolved, and also abroad in other projects? Do you mind touching a bit more?
Yeah. So for big projects that I was involved in, it's obviously a combination effort from different offices. When I say offices, it's geographically dispersed. Some is in Australia, some is in the UK, some is here in Singapore, others in India, and so on. So you need to find a way to have a common data environment, or a CDE, to put your information in. And then you need to have a model quality review for your incoming models, as you said, coming from different contractors. Because one contractor might be using one particular software, modeling software, another one might be using another preferred one. It's okay to have different ones. It's okay to have different products, like one is modeled in EcoSim, one is modeled in Revit. But you decide, the owner or the engineer, the owner's representative, decides that they will be combined into one neutral file format like IFC. Then that's easy. So and you must enforce it. You need to say that yes, you can use your own model authoring software, but it needs to be combined. For example, in iModel, on the project that I'm currently doing, we actually allow them to save it into IFC 2x3 and an iModel. It is actually N. It's not an OR. So you either give me both, okay? You have to give me both. You cannot just give me an iModel or you just give me an IFC, because I need to federate them. Okay. And then the interface point is actually the key message there. Somebody has to review those models that are incoming and tie it in just nicely to the second one. Yeah. So I mean, how you package your contract depends completely up to you. But a workflow that allows you to handle different contractors and different models and different data source, whether it's a solid geometry or a mesh or whatever, or a point cloud. You need a way to actually do your quality control to them before you import them into your master model or your
actually. That's also another interesting point. You mentioned a little bit about the inbound data problem, about the quality control. How do you normally do that? What is your experience there in terms of making sure that the data is being consistent? So that's more in terms of the inbound data. But actually, that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is more about requirements management. How do you make sure that you achieve consistency across all the different stakeholders, mandate certain type of standards, and what were the risks and challenges around that?
So there are two parts of that question. One is geometry check, and then the other one is information check. So geometry check you can use Navigator, you can use any, how to say this, like Navisworks, actually check the geometry. Very easy.
And that's more of a manual type of check?
Yeah, it's a visual check.
Visual check, yeah.
Yes. And then you have basically information check. You're basically saying, okay, is the information tagged to this particular model correct? There are a few software that can do that, obviously. Solibri Model Checker is one of them, that can check. They have rule sets to actually check both the attributes or the model element information that is embedded within the model against a particular rule set. Okay? And then you can say complied or not complied. Okay. Bentley has an iTween services that can also do that as well, right? So I mean, there's a few ways to actually do that. For my project, I'm using actually Solibri to do the information check or performance evaluation check.
It must be quite challenging to set all these different rules as well, because if I assume the data sets are quite big.
Correct, yes.
And to make sure that you achieve that consistency, that you check across all the different systems, that must be a tough job.
Yeah, of course. So for example, let's just say one of the information data sets that is available is COBie. How do you check if the COBie information that is entered by the contractor is correct? Right. So you must create a rule set that actually check that. Revit has a COBie checker as well as EcoSim. That's the question. That's the key message there is who creates the rules.
Yes.
To check, because that is doable. You can check either the geometry or the information that is embedded inside the models.
And actually, on that, you mentioned COBie, and I've been at many projects where COBie was specified for the linear assets.
COBie is obviously building by us, as you know. COBie is developed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, I actually know Bill East. I mean, yeah, I met him myself, and it's building bias. Yes, that's true. That there is not really how to say this relevant for the rail, but I think the UK has a COBE strategy committee that is looking for COBE for infra.
IFC for infra.
Yeah, correct. IFC specifically for
Yeah.
infra. Yeah.
I know that they are actually now, like we have one of our colleagues looking into this, that they're currently having a beta version out for commenting on IFC for infra,
Correct.
I believe would have something
Bridge the gap. Yeah.
like the COBE data. I think that's about to come out, but not yet.
Not yet.
Right?
Yes. Yes. There's a beta version.
So before we were actually engaged in doing a data set for LTA, trying to find all of these different data, missing bits in the data schema for track work, like rail.
Correct.
It wasn't there before.
Yeah. No.
But
the new IFC 4 has those already.
Yeah. But the new IFC 4
has
those.
those.
Is that released, or that is a very new one?
That's a very new one, I think. Yes. Yeah. I think ECOSYM has already supporting IFC 4. You can
but that's not the same as the IFC for rail.
Yeah, that's different. Yes, correct. Yes, that's correct.
So maybe there's an expanded IFC that caters for some of these rail elements, but it's not the full IFC for rail.
Yes. Two different things.
Right?
Yes. So you have IFC 2x3, you have IFC 4, you have IFC for rail, and so on and so forth.
And IFC for rail, I think, is not yet out. It's out for commenting or something. Like
yeah, from the building part.
So you cleverly sneaked out of the second part of the question, which was about the specification, making sure that we have this consistency, standardization from the owner or from the let's say multidisciplinary design perspective. What challenges do you see, and especially applicable to this region in terms of specifying, and what would you be your advice generally to make sure that we have a certain type of standardization in place across the ecosystem of the larger project?
It all boils down to two things. One, what the government says must be done or mandatory. And the second one is what the owner wants. Because in the end, if you specify it, the contractor will just price for it. And you will get that information. You will get that level of detail or level of quality that you need. So if you specify it, the contractor will just price for it. It might be higher, yes, but you will be using the full intelligence in BIM, or the full information set. Yes. It's all about that. So if the government says that yes, include this is a mandatory requirement now. It's no longer about geometry. It's all about the information embedded inside the model so that you can make sense of it or create rule sets to check it. Then that is the most interesting part.
And do you see this happening across the region in Singapore or other countries in the region? Do you see this happening?
Yes, obviously, Australia has their own code checking. The US has their own auto codes. There's also development in Singapore. It will be the future. Yes.
Okay. So another question I have actually with regards to a bit more forward-looking. So the question is right now, where do you see the industry at the moment heading towards? What would be the next 5 years in terms of the focus that you foresee the industry should be taking into consideration? What would be your advice there? What do you see happening in terms of trends and shifts in Singapore, and you can consider also separately the other countries?
Yeah, if you notice, the private construction is not really there. I mean, there's a few condominiums, malls, and so on and so forth. Most of the construction industry is gearing towards infrastructure. And you need to have a different kind of skill set to actually do an infrastructure project. That's very important to know. Yeah, because the jobs, the one who is spending is the public sector. It's the creation of airports, Changi Terminal 5, rail, public housing, and so on. So these are these are mostly infrastructure. The spending is very, very obvious on the public sector side. And you need to follow that particular trend. And so you need to understand the differences between a building project and an infrastructure project.
Any other advice before we end? Any other advice that you might have to the audience, assuming we have a mix between the owners and multidisciplinary designers and also subcontractors? Any other advice you feel to give for now?
Yeah, what I can say is geometry is geometry. BIM is focusing mostly on geometry, if you notice, for a very long time.
Yeah.
The future that I think is more important is in the information embedded inside that model. So and how you handle it, because contractors can fill in those information, but of what use? So you might be asking, okay, so I put COBie information inside there, but how are you going to use it? So that's a key message, okay? And the owner has a key part to play, I think, because as I said, right, if you specify it, the contractor will just price for it. But you must have something of good use to that particular model that you paid for so much.
Yeah.
So if you're paying X amount of money for a particular product, it must be for something of use in the future. You use currently or in the future. Because some owners actually specify something that they're just hoping to use. They're not really using now.
They're not sure why is it.
I think this is often the problem, right, with the owners, that they're not operating teams are not geared up to consuming the models they're building, and then they get another company in to do the maintenance for them.
Yeah, there's a disconnect.
So what is missing is the forward thinking at earlier stages. What do we need to ask, or what does the client need to define to get the designers and contractors to embed in the model so it would fit whatever system they're using for operations and maintenance?
Correct, yes.
So I've seen that problem a lot.
We have that same argument over and over again. So the first argument was that do you need this, like COBie? Do you need it? And the second question is, okay, I specify 100 attributes that the contractor will fill in. It's not right to say to the contractor, I'll fill in at this stage or at the end of the project. You need to have specific data drops, So the contractor will fill in 1 to 10 at this date, and the next 20 at this date, and the rest, at the handover or the commissioning stage. Yeah.
And you need to define that.
You need to define
an MIDP or something, right?
Yeah.
To not to overburden any party at any given time.
Correct.
To
give them time to actually give to you a quality model and a quality information model.
And that can only happen if you incrementally input the data systematically, right?
Correct. Yeah,
Because
inputting the data is one thing. Reviewing it, vetting for it, and making sure that is correct is another one. Because the contractor can just say, oh, okay, this particular pump has this capacity. I mean cubic meter per second, or this is the flow rate of that particular pump. But then this is the power rating. But he just lifted it from somewhere. Somebody has to get those information and make sure that that's the correct one for that particular pump. Yes. So that is the argument that we constantly having, is that yes, you can ask for whatever it is that you wanted. But the first question is, what are we going to use it for? Number one. And then the second is, how are we going to deliver it in incremental stages? As I mentioned, data drop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at different milestones of the project, so that not to overburden the responsibility directly to the contractor, because the contractor will just give you what you want, nothing more, nothing less.
So I think we're going to release you to your next meetings, right? I think you have another one after this. So thank you very much, Sonny, for coming in, sharing your story. I think we're going to, Dominic is going to say a couple of more words about the digital infrastructure community. You're going to be joining the community yourself?
Yeah, happy to go through.
Awesome. Fantastic. So Dominic, do you want to thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sonny, for coming over. And I think Dominic is going to take over from now for another 5 minutes or so. I think. Thanks.
Yeah, and Sonny, you can stay on. So I think Sonny gave a very good sort of overview what this is all about. Just before we were talking, what should this community cover? And I think we really want to cover all of these questions from the level that concerns contracts or what's in the EIRs, that sort of question, down to modeling issues, right? Like what we discussed with the GIS or mesh-based geometry versus the BIM models and so on. So we really also want to address the pain points of BIM coordinators and not keep it too high level. So we would like to find that sort of balance, and and for that we would like to reach out to all of you who joined or your friends to see who would be interested or propose subjects or pain points. So, I mean, this is of no use if it's not addressing issues that contractors, designers, operators are actually facing. So, yeah, this is, I guess, our mission vision. Jakob, can you add something to that, or?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's about creating a community where you can exchange ideas and best practices. People, experts like Sonny, people that had very practical experiences, but also bringing expertise from abroad. I think that's another way of engaging and reaching out to the wider audience. I guess that's what the community is going to try to achieve, right?
Yeah. And yeah, maybe to summarize also disciplines like who would be this relevant for. So government agencies engage a lot with like LTA in Singapore and equivalent like DLTR in the Philippines and so on. Then all the engineering consultants and so on, like Jacobs, Mott MacDonald, Arup, and all these, and contractors like I think all the big contractors. Here we have Penta Ocean downstairs, and I worked with Leighton Gammon in Hong Kong, and now I'm engaging with EI in Manila, and so on. I think all of these types of companies, and then specialist surveyors, researchers, academia, not to forget. I strongly believe we should engage more with academia. So we actually, from a Bentley perspective, we're doing this with BCA, the BCA Academy now. We're helping them with a course on digital, actually, that is specifically computational engineering for digital infrastructure. So, but there might be other synergies with academia. And yeah, what do we get out of it? Opportunity to learn, improve processes, address critical issues, and to meet. Like, so this one was because of the flu issue, we thought we better do it web-based because we wouldn't want to be responsible for bringing 50 or I don't know how many people into our DA facility here, which is also moving over to the other side now. So that sort of worked quite well. But the next one, I think we want to do here in person. We have some cold Corona beer instead of the coronavirus, possibly. and engage face to face more. You know, maybe then we could have a bit more of a discussion as well. And actually, examples from what Jakob, I think you had experience with the other group, right? What was it called?
Well, we running just Sonny just left the room. So, but yeah, just to close out, it's we would encourage the community-run workshops, sharing ideas, but also unearth certain opportunities and pain points from the processes. So and unpack a little bit more about the work processes. Actually, specifically tackle the processes and workflows for the digital infrastructure assets. So railroad, water, in particular, to make sure that we can learn from each other, but also push those advanced digital workflows and explore other aspects such as performance management, advanced dashboards and project management practices, as well as those more design oriented, such as modeling issues and all that. Yeah.
So these are these pain point processes, right? Like where we collect all the difficulties and then structure it, document it, and possibly match these pain points to solutions, which then could be documented as well, I think, and maybe have some repository for that.
Absolutely. So we encourage everyone to come in. Thank you very much for joining in today. Do you want to say anything else, Dominic?
Well, only that, you know, this is just a starting point, and we want to do this face to face. It should be a bit of fun as well next time, and we would like to invite. We're actually looking for participants, right? We don't want to do this between three of us only. So
we had around 60 or 70 people actually tuning in remotely. Next time we're going to have
to see them physically, but also to prepare, right? Like it'd be great to have 3-4 people who could maybe join us and come up with additional ideas, some sort of core group. We had another person who just had a baby, and that's why he couldn't come in person. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be only, you know, this can also evolve in a direction which suits the market or the community.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks everyone. Thank you, Dominic.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sonny, for being here, and have a good rest of the day, everyone.